take a deep breath.
Okay, this is what I'm going to tell you.
I was 18.
Oh my God.
I was 18 years old. I remember laying in bed at 18, making this picture going, man, I just really hope I don't get fired, you know?
You have to inhale, and then you get scared, and that's the Jackie Gleason.
That's the Jackie Gleason? All right.
There, that's good.
I know.
Great boy, yeah.
There you go.
Ooh, should we let the man in?
Hold on, y'all make a Big Willie sandwich. Y'all make a Big Willie sandwich.
Me and you, 9 years ago in Toronto at the Toronto Film Festival. That's right. That is when I met Jann.
Just promise me one thing.
What's that?
We don't have to depend on Maxwell Smart to save the world.
You do. You absolutely do.
We're in big trouble.
Well, we haven't talked to Jann Carl yet.
That's
now, you
right.
know that. Crying out loud. What
I'm gonna get a complex.
you think she has her finger on the pulse of the industry, you see. She knows how hard-hitting you can be.
This is the worst TV show ever. Entertainment Tonight. That's what we are. You drive us to it. It's something about you, Julia. I don't know. What can I tell you? I don't know. Oh, congratulations. This is wonderful.
Oh,
You're a sweetie.
fine.
No, I
Thank
mean
you.
it. You're talented, you're fun, you're nice, you're gracious, and
Happy New Year. The ultimate, the 14-pound Happy New Year.
whoa.
Not again.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Buzz Talk Live. My guest tonight is Jann Carl, a 3-time Emmy winner, best known for hosting Entertainment Tonight, where she spent 14 years gaining national respect for interviewing the industry's biggest stars and most influential newsmakers. Jann has also co-hosted ABC's Oscar Countdown Academy Award Show, the Emmy pre-show, as well as the Tournament of Roses parade on CBS and HDTV. She's now crisscrossing America on the nationally syndicated television show Small Town Big Deal with her co-host Rodney Miller. The show spotlights uplifting stories about people, places, and events throughout communities across the United States. She's here tonight to chat with us and talk about her ongoing distinguished career in television. So please welcome Jann Carl to Buzz Talk Live. Oh my God!
Distinguished career. I don't know.
Yeah.
That makes me feel old. But then again, I've been around a while.
You've been around a while, and let me tell you, you've knocked it out of the park with everything you've touched from when you left the newsroom. I mean, my God, from KTLA, you spent some time, and that was where you basically cut your teeth, right? In getting your interview, style down.
I would say, it all began, my first job was in Chicago.
Right.
And I started a few months before Oprah started on, it was AM Chicago. It wasn't even the Oprah Winfrey Show. So then again, I'm just going to keep saying things that go way back.
Yeah.
But then I moved to Los Angeles and worked at the ABC O&O there. And we had a magazine show called INLA that we did for a while that took me all around the world.
Wow.
So that was great. I really got to sort of practice my not behind the desk kind of things. But then came anchoring the nightly news on KTLA for 8 years live every night for an hour. Yeah.
That's a lot, and it's it's demanding, to be in the newsroom and to handle news that comes at you from all different angles and try to run with it, and you've done it so well, and you're so nice.
Did I tell you one of my biggest gaffes on TV when I was a news anchor?
I don't have any video of your gaffes.
No, I'm going to tell you one. So I remember, because you are live and you do have a teleprompter and you do work on your scripts beforehand and edit them and work with writers.
Don't tell me it's the Anchorman story that, put anything in the teleprompter and the person reads it. Okay.
No, but it is something in the teleprompter that my eyes just sort of misread and it came out and I didn't even hear myself say it.
Oh.
So because this is Los Angeles, we do have stories about the, giant studios, It was, I don't know if it was MGM or Warner Brothers or whatever it was, but it was something about the head studio chief. We go to commercial break and my co-anchor, who was about 20 years older and he'd been there forever, Hal Fishman, he he looked at me and he said, "Wow, you just demoted him to studio chef." And I said,
Oh, no.
"I did not call him the studio chef." Yeah. So,
Was he in an earshot of the broadcast?
Let's hope not. Let's hope that studio chief was not watching that night. Yeah. And in fact, it was that time on KTLA that really helped. It helped a lot when I went to ET. The first time I was going to interview Tom Hanks, I mean, I was such a huge fan. I didn't want to be all like fangirl on him and be weird.
Right.
But it was the Toronto Film Festival, kind of like Charlize was talking about. He burst into the door, and Hal Fishman was the gentleman, again, iconic anchorman in Los Angeles. And he goes, "Where's Hal Fishman? Where's Jann Carl?" So then I thought, so he feels like he already knows me because he had watched probably me deliver the news to, he and Rita, every night. So,
sure.
So it was kind of nice that I had sort of an instant recognition with a lot of the stars because of those 8 years anchoring the news in Los Angeles.
Yeah, no, I mean, and to anchor the news in LA, it's such a big town, and a lot of things are, when you anchored, I think there was a lot of things happening in the world, especially in LA.
Right. We had the Rodney King video.
Yeah.
The
OJ,
riots after
right?
that, the Northridge earthquake. There was always a lot of things from the brush fires and things like that. And then the mudslides would come. So it was a town that did have a lot of news, and being the second largest market in the US. Yeah. So, but it was hard because my heart was more on, the feature stories. There are probably a lot of journalists out there who are cringing because that's not their thing. Their thing is the hard news. Mine was more the everyday man story. Was something that I was always very interested in and fascinated in. If anybody listening remembers Charles Kuralt on CBS, On the Road with Charles Kuralt, they still do On the Road. They brought it back. It's on CBS Sunday morning, obviously somewhat different, but that's what sort of really intrigued me. So I could do the big stories and I could do the tragic stories, but when Oprah talked about, standing in front of someone's house that was burning down and crying, I could relate. It really tore us apart. So for me, I was always looking for the kind of storytelling that would be a little more uplifting and hopeful.
So yeah, you obviously got into journalism and everything, and you went the news route, and but who are your mentors?
I'm sorry, I'm a big interrupter. I'm a big and you have to keep me on track because I'll be a squirrel. I have to do a shout out to my university because I went to the University of Missouri School of Journalism, and
girl.
Because they own the NBC affiliate. The university owns. Yeah, there's no other place, I don't think, on the planet that a university owns a commercial TV station. So, I cut my teeth there, and without them, I don't know, I wouldn't have had the career I had. So,
but who was your mentors? Coming along the way, was it one person in particular? Was it like a Barbara Walters type, or was it an Oprah type, or was it somebody that maybe wasn't even in broadcasting, or
literally Charles Kuralt was one. I loved Charles Kuralt. Jane Pauley was someone that I like to watch and all that. Oprah, we all know, but to actually witness it, to witness her arrive in Chicago in January of 1984, and I would do the news cut-ins. And so I'd be there doing the news cut-ins during GMA. And on the last one at 7:25, the local news cut-in, Oprah would come in and she talked about what was coming up on AM Chicago.
Oh, wow.
She was a force of nature. In less than 3 months, she was winning the Daily Award in town. And just, I knew I was witnessing something that I would never see again in my career. So yes, I think that watching her also showed me that, and being excited about how she was able to open up her heart on air and be herself and help others do the same. That was inspiring.
Right. Well, that's the major hurdle in a lot of the people that undertake, like in your position, they try to become somebody that they're not, and you got to be real, and you got to be, because the person that you're interviewing, you know, they pick up on that, and they think you're a phony, and
Yeah.
what have you. And we'll talk about Jerry Lewis later on, because you were a big part of his life, and he, you know, he's had some interviews that were like, you know, train wreck interviews that
Jerry.
It was like I got my popcorn out, because he was just like firing back at this guy. Anyway, I don't have that clip, but yeah, I mean, you know, going back to just being real, you know, just, you know, being a real person when you're doing an interview, and you're so polished, and then, you know, you get on Entertainment Tonight, and, you know, my God, it was like, you know, you got shot out of a cannon, and you're in the town, fantasy town, you know, in Hollywood, and everybody's at your fingertips. Did it take a while to get the, you know, the stars to really know you, or did they know you through the news? How did that all work?
Yeah, I mean, luckily, Entertainment Tonight, it was a show that was a force of nature too. And you know, when it first went on the air, everyone said it wouldn't work. They said, you can't fill a half hour with entertainment news, which of course now we know you can fill a whole network with entertainment news.
Oh yeah.
They didn't even have the ability to satellite the show to all of the place. Not every TV station had a satellite dish back then. It was crazy. But obviously, yes, they could fill a half hour of entertainment news and then some. So when I joined in 1995 as a well-oiled machine, I mean, the producers had great relationships with, you know, the publicists and the personal publicists, the publicists for the studios. So I got to gently walk into that. And I think that, yes, I think some of them, like I said, Tom Hanks and others already knew me because of being on the air in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
But I take a lot of pride in that I would sit down and I was fully aware of who the star was. Yeah. I am not the star. The person I am sitting across from, you know, George Clooney, Julia Roberts, you know, whoever it may, that is the star. Right. So I think first and foremost that there was an instant recognition of, I sort of knew my role. My role was to be a journalist and to interview them. Right. I don't think that was always the case sometimes. I think sometimes the people who go into that side of this, they think they become the stars. And then I think that the real stars are kind of rolling their eyes. I'm not sure. So that was the first thing. But secondly, I guess I was very interested in the person beyond the star. You know, who, and they're not so comfortable with that. That's why they become actors. You know, they get to play someone else on the screen. And some responded well to that, and some not so well to that.
Yeah, because I mean, they become chatty, and then, you know, they talk in the third person, and you know, then you have to be a really good listener, because, you know, because of them playing so many different roles in the movies, and then it's like, okay, well, George Clooney, this is right. Okay, now it's George Clooney, not you know, somebody that you played in the movie. So it's hard for you as an interviewer. It's hard to distinguish, you know, the actor as opposed to the character that he was playing in whatever given role. But and that,
you know, it was too, George. It was that, I mean, certainly people wanted to hear about how'd you do that? How do we do that stunt and all those things that would happen. But I think it was also, they really wanted to know a little more about the person, and I understand the desire of the celebrity to keep that in. So you had to find a way to make them feel comfortable sharing that, and getting them to open up a little bit and feeling safe enough to do that. And a lot of times through humor, it was easy to do. I mean, Will Smith was he was my favorite. When Will Smith was on my shoot, you know, day, life is good. Tom Cruise was that way. I mean, George was that way. You know, Julia was that way. But then there were others that were, I mean, it's no secret that Harrison Ford does not like getting interviewed. It's no secret. He'd be sitting here today, you know, he absolutely correct.
So I can cross Harrison Ford off my list. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, you know what? Here's the throwdown.
That's
you know, Harrison, if you're listening, I dare you. You know,
come on, let's go. No,
you know. So it was. There were some that were more difficult than others, but mostly I feel like I had the opportunity and and was able to run with it. I feel really good now. I hear back from people at ET saying, "Oh, we're doing a retrospective on so and so. Oh my gosh, they're all your interviews. You know, we're pulling all the clips from your interviews." It makes me feel good because I took great pride in that.
So, I mean, what was your involvement with was Mary Hartman, right?
Mary Hart, yeah.
Mary Hartman.
No, so, Mary was...
She was like the principal, right? I mean, she was the one...
Oh, yeah. And for years.
Yeah.
4 years. And she was the face of ET.
Right.
You know, and she had the ability to, as you know, and it's funny, she's kind of a small town girl from the Midwest. I'm sort of like more of a small town girl from the Midwest. And I think there is something about that that's disarming. And Mary was that way too, with everyone that she interviewed. So I think she had the ability to have people open up to her as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, the technique, and you probably didn't even know the technique I mean, as you grew as an interviewer, you've become so polished in Entertainment Tonight, and the people that you were interviewing, you know, engaging, and you kept it so light, and you just, it was like a happy moment, you know, where it wasn't like, you know, 60 Minutes, you know, it's like, I got to know this right now. Everything.
Well, here's the thing.
Well, yeah, but you were very sweet. You're very sweet.
When there was a scandal, I very often got assigned to do the interview, whether it was the addiction.
All right, let's go. I need dirt. Let's go.
and that's so against my nature.
No,
it's so against my nature to, you know, stick my nose in where maybe someone's uncomfortable or where they've had a bad experience or where they feel badly about something. And I would lay awake for 2 nights thinking, how was I going to get that question in and ask them and not make them feel badly, and yet kind of find out how they were doing.
Yeah.
So it was, I mean, that was the hardest part of the job for me, just because I was raised, you know, not to bring up certain things and not to make people feel uncomfortable. And it would make people feel uncomfortable sometimes. And there's, you know, like that, the reel you showed at the beginning of the show is all some of the fun, you know, crazy moments. There's another reel where it's about addiction, or it's about attempted suicide, or you know, all kinds of other things that people went through. So and at one point, later on, Tom Hanks says in that, he goes, "Oh, you don't want us to talk to Jann Carl." Oh, he goes, "But don't make my wife cry." Because he had seen enough interviews where people would start to cry when we would open up and they would talk about some really deep things. I think
off camera or during
the interviews.
Oh, during the interviews.
During the interviews. And I think that, I mean, I think in some ways it helped people to see that these people that they idolized, they went through rough times too. Everything wasn't always, you know, roses and limos for them. But for me, my stomach would be in a knot. I mean, for days thinking about how I was going to get into that question.
Well, you didn't show.
I was definitely not cut out for 60 Minutes. I mean, I could have done it, but I don't know how much I would have enjoyed it all the time.
Yeah, no, and you didn't show it. I mean, it was very, very polished.
You have to be respectful. You know, you have to understand that you're bringing up something difficult. Yeah, it was hard.
And then you're doing the red carpets, right? You did the Tournament of Roses and you know, all these the Emmy stuff, and now with the Emmy, well, let's talk about the Emmys. You got the Emmys for the news. For news.
Those were for news. You know, back when I was at ET was in a category that you couldn't get an Emmy for. And that switched after I left. And I think they've just won every year now in the category that they're in.
Of course they did.
Yeah. But back when I don't think syndicated shows, and we were sort of that fringe show that was after news, but before prime time. So it wasn't prime time and it wasn't daytime. You know, so you weren't in the daytime Emmys and you weren't in the primetime Emmys. So it was in this sort of void, but they've changed that since I left. And I'm so proud of all the people that I still know there. Kevin Frazier, who's the host now, and others that are there. Some of the great users.
No, look, the show has morphed into, you know, other things. And but, you know, when you were part of it, it was very, you know, well, coming from Mayor Hart and how the show was devised, and who is the executive producer?
Linda Bell Blue was the executive producer when I was there, who was also a small town girl from the Midwest, from Missouri.
Oh, wow.
Who also went to the University of Missouri. So see who
what
shout
is
out
it
again.
with you girls from small town Missouri? Yeah.
Look out, just look out. Yeah, we're going to take over the world.
I'm telling you.
But yeah, so Linda, she always knew what the viewer wanted to see. And she had a sixth sense about what the viewer was interested in. I've never seen anything like it. It was a gift. Yeah.
Yeah. No, look, visions, visions that people have for the show, and then, putting the right people in charge and in front of the camera like yourself. I mean, that's what really drove the show. And Nancy O'Dell, right, is another person.
Yeah, Nancy came on after I left. She was at Access Hollywood. We were arch rivals, but we were friendly. And I do think it kind of drove our bosses crazy, because we'd hit the red carpet and we'd say, hey, and they'd say, let's get a picture together. And we knew our bosses would be like, no, don't take a picture together. We're supposed to be enemies. And I love Nancy. And so we'd be like, sure.
Well, you were with Nancy with the Jerry Lewis Telethon for many years.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I had done the
Jerry,
Telethon. Yeah.
What's going on there? I mean, my God, how did you get this gig?
I had done the local telethon in Los Angeles for, several years, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Maybe
like the answering the phones and all that stuff. And
and the local people who would raise money, those are the people that, they worked on the golf tournaments and the dinners and all that for so long. And, so I guess then when I went to Entertainment Tonight, then Jerry asked if I would do national. And I'm sure some of the national people told him, she'd been doing a good job in LA or whatever.
Right.
So, and then, so my involvement just came from doing the telethon locally. And then so many people at MDA and those that we served, many of the patients and their families have become my second family and still are my second family. And I love you all who are out there watching. Yeah. And but with
Nancy, you and Nancy were like a tag team partners.
Yes.
With
What
Jerry.
happened? Nancy's mother was diagnosed with ALS, better known as Lou Gehrig's disease, and that is one of the 43 diseases that MDA covers. And so the minute I heard it, I called her. Because it's a fatal. It's usually 3 to 5 years, and I think for her mom it was very quick. And so Nancy then wanted to help and do what she could to raise awareness about ALS and help raise funds. And she continues to be a good friend of MDA's.
Yeah, no, Jerry was very fond of you two, and I don't know what period of time this next clip I'm going to show is that. When he gave you guys a heartfelt, thank you on live. I guess it was live on the air.
Yeah, it's live.
Yeah, so let's take a look at Jerry giving thanks.
Oh, okay.
How is that? What a number.
I got the benefit more than I deserve, but I've got the benefit of these two ladies to be here and to do what they do to help me. And they're quite special, not because they're here and because they do what they do, but because I feel their soul whenever I'm with them. It's very brief. We don't spend a lot of time together, but I'm very blessed because I can instinctively feel the soul of someone who gives so much that it becomes almost touchable. And that's these two ladies, along with some other great people. I'm very blessed and extremely fortunate. And I'm sure that the two of you are insane over being in my presence.
It almost makes us...
Up. Don't you genuflect with this Jew.
Oh, you naughty man.
Yes, that's me.
Jerry, all I want to say is we're a family. We're your family. We're MDA's family. We're families with everyone here and everybody at home who made a pledge. Thanks for being a part of our family.
Look at the work you've done. Look up there.
I know. I never can wrap my head around it every year. I have a hard time, and I'm so grateful.
And we have to let people know that we are affected that way.
Yes.
It does that.
Yep. Every person that called. We can't do it without you. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Thank you, Jann.
Thank you. Love you.
Thank you.
Wow. I mean, my God, that man was such a champion of that cause. I mean, all those years that he put it on. I mean, I was watching it when I was a kid. For crying out loud. I mean,
I had a backyard carnival, you know, when I was tiny and, you know, little.
Yeah, yeah. It was like, you know, the summertime thing, right? Because it was during the summer.
Labor Day weekend. Labor Day weekend.
Right.
Yeah. That one picture you just showed, I was 8 months pregnant with my son. Jerry was like, "What are you doing here?" I was like, "Doing the telethon." He's like, I said, the baby's not due for 3 weeks. We're fine. And a day and a half later, my water broke. And
oh boy!
Matthew came 3 weeks early, so maybe
it looks like Jerry's arm was like on your stomach.
He's like using Matthew as a shelf, you know.
Oh my God! You know, he was such a class act for so many years, and you know, a comic genius, and I mean, an icon. You know, my God, he's Jerry Lewis. You know, and when you first worked with Jerry, was he very receptive of you? And well, I guess because he knew what he was, you know, who was coming in.
You know, I think it's safe to say Jerry didn't suffer fools very well. He could be difficult.
He could see right through people.
Yeah. And I guess I've felt lucky that from the first moment I worked with him, we had a great relationship and a great rapport. And he gave me such great respect. Great. I think he really saw the love in my heart for so many of the MDA people and for the cause. I mean, literally, they are still my family and my friends, and they are my second family. And so, and Jerry he's responsible for us even knowing the term muscular dystrophy. I mean, if it weren't for Jerry Lewis, we wouldn't know the term. You know, they're orphan diseases.
It's true.
But MDA still exists. You know, times change. The telethon, you know, it was when TV stations would just give the time away.
Exactly.
Back then. You know, they started it in the 50s.
Yeah.
And so things changed and times changed, and how expensive it was to put the telethon on changed. But MDA is still out there and making a difference in people's lives. And so I hope people are still donating. You know, that would make Jerry happy.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, you know, he's made his mark, that's for sure, in everybody's lives that he's touched. And
I gotta tell you, the weirdest thing was when he would call me. When all of a sudden your phone rang, this is back when you have the answering machine. Right. And it would be like, you know, it's Jerry Lewis. And I'd be like, I never got used to that ever. It was
Jerry Lewis.
Freak out. Like I'm an idiot, but yeah.
Oh, that's great. You know, through your years at Entertainment Tonight, and then with the Jerry Lewis Marathon, you're getting into some involvement with reality TV, and I think was it 10 years at this? It was Sold. It was called Sold.
So after ET, I decided that, you know, I wanted to try producing. And I had two dear friends that had been producers their whole career and successful producers. And one is Julie Harmon Mastrodani. Julie, if you're listening, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Julie. Hopefully she's tuning in tonight. That would be great. If she is, if she's not, then, you know, she missed her chance.
She missed our shout out, our birthday
the shout out for Julie. And she was great. I mean, I had Julie on a prior show when I first started out really doing this. And she was one of my prominent guests at the time, and she was so classy, and she was perfect. And
wait, classy? Are we talking about the same? No, just kidding.
I didn't say that.
I have to give her a hard time. Oh no, no.
No, you two guys are best friends, right? Or pretty close to it.
Yeah.
And that time has, look, it's from the days of producing and executive producing with these reality shows. And she grew up with reality shows.
Julie had produced her whole career. We met in the early to mid 1980s. I guess 85, so mid 80s, and we just became friends. And then when Soul came about, it was also another producing friend, Bonnie Brennan. And so Bonnie and Julie, they had the experience in producing. Me?
Right.
No. I came up with the idea. Julie laughs and says, I come up with my best ideas in the shower. I was in the shower and I'm thinking about American Pickers and I was thinking about Pawn Stars. And I said, auctions are fun. Why don't we do a show on an auctioneer? And but I didn't know what to do with the idea. But Julie and Bonnie did. Literally, so Soul, Rick Bryant, the one on the right there in the maroon shirt, he was Rick, and then Jerry on the left. It was one of his guys that worked for him. It was a show. It aired on the History Channel, and it only had one season. And I think if they aired it today, but when it aired, it was when they were at their grandest, most successful, highest ratings, best demos, and they had a bar you had to hit that was really, really, really high for a primetime show. But it was a great show. The personalities were amazing. The things that happened producing that show, we looked at each other because we wanted it to be real. Everything was bought and sold on that show. Or if there was one thing that didn't, it didn't. It's not like some shows where they have bidders or they might have something in the storage unit that's not really there. They planted it there, all that kind of stuff.
Did the show happen in one place, or was it a traveling show?
One place, but we would take him out when there would be interesting things that people wanted to auction off, and we did source things to be auctioned off. But the fact that and this is a tiny town, not too far from Lake of the Ozarks. But it was quite the experience to produce it. I ran around all the time saying, this is my first rodeo. This is my first rodeo, because I had never produced anything. Sure. The expression of drinking out of a fire hydrant, that's what I was trying to do. Because I wanted to learn everything. And I didn't do everything well. But I was very proud of the product. It's a great show.
And little did you know back then, fast forward to today and what you're doing with Small Town Big Deal, that's kind of, not the same, but you're embarking on people's lives around the country, right?
It was like a dream come true. I know that sounds so corny and so ridiculous, but in the process of pitching shows, that was the other crazy thing about Sold. It was the first show we pitched. And we were a brand new production company, and the first show we pitched, the History Channel took. And A&E wanted it, but they're owned by the same company. So then it was like, who's going to get it? But when that went away, I thought, okay, well, what am I going to do? Because I got to tell you, George, in this business, we talk about all these great things I've done, but you know what? My contract at ABC in Los Angeles, when it was up, it was sort of like, you're done. My job at KTLA,
really?
We're done with you. Yeah.
Wow.
At ET, we're not going to pick up your contract. So I can't sit here and act like, it's the nature of the business, and it's really hard, and it hurts.
Look, I get all that, Jan, but your personality, it's not like, you were a staffer or somebody who got coffee for somebody. You were in front of the camera. You were a personality. You interviewed presidents. My God, and that's the, thanks, but I'll see.
Yeah, that's true. I will say that I used to joke around, and everybody at ET knows it's true, or any other place. It's sort of like, if you had died, they would have done this beautiful, like obit about you and said, "Oh my gosh, we're gonna miss." But if they let you go, if they let you go, if they don't pick up your contract, it's like you never existed. Wow. It's like you're just poof.
It's so cold.
You're just gone. You know, so so it was hard. It was hard, but so then I thought, well, what do I want to do? Do I really want to be on the air anymore? And I just kind of didn't want to be in front of the camera anymore. And in the process of researching and looking for places to pitch shows, I had signed up for the weekly newsletter from a small cable network called RFD. And RFD is mostly for like farmers, ranchers, equestrians. It's very agricultural based. My dad worked for John Deere tractors for 30 years. So, and my grandparents were dairy farmers. So that was close to my heart. So it didn't seem odd. Okay, definitely when things used to come to my inbox from RFD that said, the cattle auction show, I'd be like, delete, or some other things that I was not interested in. But one week they said, hey, we're starting a new show called Small Town Big Deal. And it tells great stories from all across America. And I was like, what? I became my Labrador retriever. Ooh. I was like, what is that? I sent an email. I looked him up. I sent an email. I said, hey, here's who I am. Here's what I've done. I will come. I will be a PA, which in, terms of, it's like, a production. I said, I'll be a PA. I'll be a peon. I said, I just want to be a part of the show. And Rodney Miller, who created the show and who was hosting it by himself at the time, likes the part where I said, I talked about the kind of show it was. It was an uplifting, hopeful, family-friendly show. And I said, you're my hero, which of course now I regret saying because, now it went to his head, right? But
he seems like a nice guy, though. I mean, I think that,
we have become great friends through the process. And they didn't at first. The gentleman that did the show with him, there's Rodney. The show that he did the show with him got the email and didn't want to pass the email on. They thought it was fake. They didn't think Jann Carl had sent them an email. They didn't know. Right? And so finally he passed the email on, and then Rodney called me, and the rest is history. I joined the show. That was the fall of 2012. I joined the show in officially January of 2013.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's the hardest thing I've ever done, though, because.
Right. Well, when that happened, though, Jann, I mean, coming from where you were from Mars, and then, you crashed down on a small little town, and Rodney here, he's not, he doesn't have the background. He was
a tractor executive, the CEO of a couple of tractor companies. That's what I'm saying. Big deal, big businessman. But...
Right. But it's like, here you are, coming, sort of crashing the party, so to speak. But, I want to be a part of the show. But it's like, Jann Carl, it's like, my God.
The staff did not want me to. There was this hesitancy. She's going to be all Hollywood. I'm so not Hollywood. I was always a fish out of water. I always felt a little bit like an imposter on the red carpet. I mean, I could do the pose. I'm wearing the diamonds that were lent to us from Van Cleef and Arpels, but inside of me, I was like,
you could play it, right?
I'm an imposter. Does anybody know I'm an imposter? So I'm much more comfortable on a dirt road in the back roads than I am on the red carpet. Right? Wow. Can I do them both? I can do them both. Yeah. But I am so fascinated with the extraordinary stories that ordinary people are doing.
Yeah, it's great too. I mean,
I love that.
The show has done very well. Like you said, it was originally with RFTD, which is, I guess, it was an independent owned or something like that.
Yeah. So that's an independent owned cable network, which is, that story is amazing, that how he got that launched to the gentleman that launched it. And then
he got picked up and syndicated,
Yeah, getting syndicated was, we were the first show, I think, that ever started on RFD that got nationally syndicated. And it's interesting too. I mean, yes, there were some advantages. Everybody said, well, you'll never get on in New York. You'll never get on in New York. And I'm like, well, why not? And they said, well, you'll have to pay them to put your show on. And at the time, we weren't getting paid. We were very passionate. It's a passion project, and we weren't getting paid. And I'm like, you know, I'm not going to pay a station in New York to air the show until I'm getting paid at least. So it's like, and the very first station to take us was WABC, and that's Art Moore, who, if people watch, Kelly and Ryan, Art's on there all the time. He's the program director. He is a gem. He is an amazing man. Been in television, his whole life. And he took the show. And quite honestly, most of the shows are based in small towns, but it's the stories. It's the stories of the people. And
that's what makes it so unique too, you know, because you go around and you interview and you know, these events and they're real people, you know, it's not, you know, and
they're crazy events. When we heard there was a tug of war across the Mississippi River, I'm like, what are you talking about? I said, you know, at one point I lived in a town, Moline, Illinois, on the Mississippi. That's a half mile wide. What are you talking about? I said, there's giant commerce. You know, there's giant barges. No, the Army Corps of Engineers will shut the river down for 4 hours for these two towns to have a tug of war across the Mississippi.
That's insane.
Crazy. I mean,
well, these small towns, that's what they do, Jan. I mean, you know, it's not a
things that are happening in America every weekend. Are
I know.
I mean, it's amazing. There's a D-Day reenactment along in Lake Erie that is 1,500 reenactors there, and the veterans that come and how they're loved and treated.
I have that. I want to show the small town.
Did you think you were going to get a word in edgewise on your own show? I'm just wondering.
I thought you were going to turn the tables on me, but let me show this teaser. Can I get that in?
Just jump in. It's your show. I have to remind my.
Now I know how they felt at Small Town Big Deal. No, I'm kidding.
No, it's true. It's true.
All right. let me show this teaser, and then we can come back and talk about it a little bit more.
Yeah, all about a good time. Yeah, all about a good life. You won't believe it till you see. This is gonna be a fun ride. Yeah, baby. Yeah, all about a good time. Yeah, all about a good life. Good energy, come follow me. Oh, it's gonna be a good night.
She's good at telling me what to do, so I'll follow her lead.
Let's go.
Small Town Big Deal, beginning its 7th season this fall. Airing on more than 295 stations, including WABC in New York, WPVI in Philadelphia, and WSB in Atlanta, just to name a few.
Good job, good job.
We hit the road every week, crisscrossing the U.S., celebrating the great stories of America.
Some of them are amazing.
Hey! Hey!
And some of them are amusing.
Oh my goodness!
Oh my God!
Being alive is what we're all about, and being a place where everybody feels good and everybody feels welcome.
We're like America's family reunion.
This is the most fun
we've both had in our lives.
Yeah.
Come on, Rodney! Woo!
And everywhere we go, people are catching small town big deal fever.
You're watching Small Town
Big Deal! That's great. I'll tell you, when I first saw the trailer of that, it was like, wow, this is so cool. And you know, you're involved in all the shows. I mean, now was that you falling in the water?
That was me falling in the water.
And showing your guns? Was that you showing your guns?
No, I wish.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, we rappelled with Army Rangers, and we've done.
Yeah.
There's a small town in Maine that has the U.S. National Toboggan Championships.
That's
And
crazy.
I'm like, should I have a helmet on? I was like, no. Yeah, like I said, every weekend there's something very cool happening in America. Communities coming together.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
From all different walks of life, but it's their town, and they come together, and they're either celebrating, the National Toboggan championship, or it's, you know, the cherry festival, or it's something about their heritage. And, you know, at a time when we talk about, and we do feel so divided, and everything seems so geared towards keeping us divided, I want people to watch the show and be reminded, no, you know what, we have different opinions. We're not all alike. I mean, we're all incredibly different, and that's what makes the world interesting.
That's what makes America, America, right?
Yeah, but the fact
last time I checked.
Yeah, last time I checked is that we love the differences, and and the fact that these communities all come together to do something that celebrates or brings attention or promotes tourism, or it's inspiring, and it's a reminder that that it's happening. I think too often there isn't a spotlight put on those things.
It's true.
You know, too often the spotlight is on the negative.
Yeah,
and
it is.
And people say, "Oh, no one will watch positive TV." Well, they're watching our show.
Yeah. No, it's true.
And I hope more people watch the show.
Look, I mean, what we're getting out of right now as a country with this pandemic and everything, you know, strap yourself on, because it's going to get busy, you know, with all these small towns just trying to get back to normalcy, and if they're not already doing it. And I'm sure your calendar is booked up, because it's going to be incredible for you to capture these moments. But I mean, the show is in its 10th season. Is that, am I right?
Yeah, 10th season, if you include that, just when we were just on RFD, and we're starting our 7th season in national syndication.
National syndication, 7th. So let me ask you this: as far as coming up with show ideas and you know, keeping it fresh and new, and because look, it's America, so you have all the states to choose from, and eventually, I mean, do you find yourself either running out of ideas or running out of, you know, things to cover, or, you know, because it is that type of show, you know?
No, actually, the answer is no, and it's my favorite thing to do on the show is to like find them. For instance, there is, you know, Wisconsin is very big with lakes and water skiing. They have a huge water ski show championship. You know, we're in there and there's giant pyramids, you know, and there's somebody on one ski, or they're doing ballet on a ski. And I'm like, wait, they still do those shows, kind of like what we saw in the movies way back when?
World's Fair, 1969.
And it's a big deal for them to compete. So we're going to that.
Wow.
There's a circus museum, and there's a guy there that refurbishes the beautiful old wagons.
There's a circus museum? Did you say?
Pardon?
There's a circus museum, you said?
Yeah, see? Who knew, right? You know where we were
I never
recently?
knew that.
Yep, but we were just
this is
recently
why you should tune in to her show, so you can know about circus
We were
museum.
just at the last washboard factory in America.
Right.
You know? And then you think, washboards, who uses washboards? And we found out, well, there's some people who want to be off the grid. There are some Amish and Mennonite. There are people that use them for instruments. There are people who use them to decorate. And they were sending washboards to our military personnel on the front lines, you know, in the middle of a desert, and you can't wash your clothes. Now, I imagine they must ship clean clothes in and out, but if you wanted to just clean your shirt or whatever, so they would send a bucket, one of their washboards, and soap, and we were reading letters from guys that were so grateful for their washboard. I'm like, what? But it's things that you that you never realize were happening, and I love it.
I have a my next clip is a clip of these these hidden treasures that people have in barns or in their basement or their homes, and you often wonder what they're used for. And you guys did a segment on this, and I thought that this was pretty amusing, to say the least. And there's a story behind that, and
where all this stuff is,
where all this stuff comes from. So here, check this out.
I can't wait to go a little deeper in the warehouse, though, and look at the other treasures.
Well, you're a treasure, Jan.
Oh, wait, are you calling me? He's calling me an antique.
No,
are you calling me an antique?
You guys like to go to auctions and flea markets, so thought we'd just kind of test your knowledge, see how
a little competition.
Yeah, see what y'all can guess what these are. This is a small model of it, but got any clue what that might have been used for?
I think I might know.
I really have no clue.
No clue.
I'm gonna guess that the woman of the house would wash clothes with this.
You got it. That was a hand agitator for
Yeah,
washing
that's
clothes.
it. You know, yeah, you had to get, you know. Oh, he's mad already. Okay, one for Jan.
Good
Ding!
job. Good job. How about this little piece here? A little heavy.
Would that be a weight that goes on a scale?
Was it on a scale?
You would put this and hook it to your horse or cow.
There we go. It's your portable hitching post.
And they
carry
couldn't
those
get
in
away. They
there.
couldn't get away.
It's obvious that you're older than me because you know all of this stuff.
I knew he was gonna go there. No, I'm telling you.
2-0. I'm too young to know this stuff. I'm gonna get this one.
All right.
I know what that is.
All right.
I'm gonna guess soil tester.
Yeah, you're wrong. But you're right on the tester part. When you take a load of grain, which I've had 1,000 loads of grain, and they probe the truck, and they open that up, and the corn goes in there, and they close it off. Now my background now wins out.
Yeah, I know.
I'm in it with 2 to go, and
That's
I'm
right.
not feeling real good about the last 2 here.
That's an odd little creature. It's been here in our warehouse forever.
I'll take a guess. Some type of light that floats.
Yeah, you put fuel in here, you light those, and
He's got it. It was for like night fishing.
night
They would
fishing.
light it up. It's the only one of those I've ever
I wonder
seen.
if that still would work, because I like to fish.
Oh yeah, it'd be. Well, this is the one I was not sure whether I was going to ever tell you guys about if you didn't get it. But I've seen 2 of these. I've been doing this for 30 plus years. The first one sat in my office for 6 months till I found out what it was.
I got an idea.
Okay.
Punches a hole in something. Belts.
Yep.
Does that put an ear tag in a cow's ear?
It doesn't. They did a great job figuring out a lot of those pieces, but I would have been amazed if it got that last piece. I kept that piece in my office for 6 months and asked every antique dealer that came in, what is this? Nobody ever figured it out. Finally found it in a catalog.
That's crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
and you know what I love about it is that, you know, there is no acting. You know, this is, you two guys are so real, and, you know, you're going with the conversation, and it's just, you know, you're part of the scene, and that's where the purity comes out, and that's where, you know, there's no hiding there, you know, and he's so good. I mean, Rodney is perfect. And for the show, obviously, and the 2 of you are just, you know, the yin and the yang type of thing, you know, and it's great to see that. And some of those artifacts, my God, I mean, you know,
yeah.
the portable hitching post. I mean, who'd have thunk it, you know, to have something
I
like
knew
that.
what that was because my parents loved to go to auctions, and we would go, and you know,
Right.
sometimes as a kid you might fuss, but I kind of liked learning what all that stuff was, and my parents loved it, and my grandpa had a barn filled with it.
Right, sure. Yeah, you probably knew a lot more than what you led on to there at that table, and but
you know, there was another one that I knew that, and another that he had no clue, and I was so close with that soil tester instead.
Oh, yeah, I
but
know.
that's one.
Well,
but what
I mean-
that was is that gentleman that you were showing the clip of. Yeah, he just retired, but for years he decorated every single Cracker Barrel in America.
Wow.
And where we were, it's in Lebanon, Tennessee, and it's their antique, it's their artifact warehouse. It is huge. And this aisle has signs, and this aisle has hats, and this aisle is related to cows, and this aisle is related to, you know,
So
the
wait a minute,
coal
you mean to
industry.
tell me that the Cracker Barrels that are up and down the East Coast, are they out in the West Coast too, or is
They're
that
everywhere. Yeah,
They're
I think
everywhere.
I don't know how many states they're in, but they're across America. All of those artifacts are.
hundreds of
I think
establishments?
hundreds.
So I mean, you know,
those aren't
everywhere
reproductions.
Yeah, and everywhere when you go to a Cracker Barrel, as we have, you look around and there's no like site where it's empty. Everything is filled with knickknacks and you know, all these artifacts. And so you mean to tell me that this person supplied all these artifacts to all of the restaurants?
His parents started it. His parents were friends with the person that founded Cracker Barrel. And then it kind of grew into this business for them. And then for that gentleman that was their son, literally, yes, until he retired recently.
That's amazing.
They have decorated, every single one. And it's, and you keep thinking, okay, some of these things maybe were reproductions because there's so many Cracker Barrels. No.
Right.
No. And dealers, antique dealers just show up with their, I don't know, U-Haul full of stuff, and they decide what they're going to buy, and then they put it in the warehouse. And then when they know where they're going to be, if they're going to be in Texas, they're going to look for stuff cattle related or oil related, or, and they try to theme it out a little bit. That was fascinating. That was a cool
So I got to say, you must have like a crack staff of researchers and people that, you can just pick up the phone and say, we want to do it on, so research this, give me some location.
No,
I mean,
we are a tiny show. I mean, we're very small.
Wow.
And I have to give our viewers credit. Like some of the things I've mentioned, the tug of war across the Mississippi, that a viewer called that in. The D-Day reenactment that's in
That's
Pontiac,
really cool
Ohio.
that they interact like that with you guys.
Yes, that's from a viewer who called and said, hey, you need to do this story. So some of them, some of the best stories we've done have been because viewers told us what was happening in their hometown.
Viewer producer.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's authentic.
A segment producer, viewer.
Yeah.
That's
so
crazy.
That's been great to do that. And the other thing we'd love to do is we'd like to focus on Made in America. I'm very passionate about that. A lot of them are small companies. One was Hickory Furniture Company in Indiana.
Oh, I was going to say North Carolina.
Yeah, so this was in Indiana. And I will tell you, the chairs that they made and sold to the lodge in Yellowstone Park.
Really?
Still there. And they sold them over 100 years ago to them.
Wow.
Now, I think they've had to be recaned, but the chairs themselves, they're still there. And I said, you got a problem if your stuff doesn't wear out. You either have to find new customers or sell new stuff to your existing customers because your stuff never breaks. So it's just, I love doing the Made in America stories. They just, I love it.
With your background with ET and being an anchor and all that, you kind of like stuck to the West Coast, so to speak, in that way. But now doing this show, I mean, my God, you're across America and you're seeing how, all these people, all these real people, and all these events that you're part of, and that's crazy that you've witnessed all this in a short period of time. I mean, 10 years is 10 years, but the amount of airline miles and hotels and I mean, it's crazy that you've
it makes two things. One, I remember waking up once and thinking, where am I?
You didn't know where you were.
And I literally, it took me a few minutes and I went, oh my gosh, I'm home. Like, I didn't know I was in my own bed at home at one point. I was like, that's bad.
That's pretty bad.
And the other thing is, I'm like the worst cocktail party guest because anything that people bring up, I'm like, let me tell you about this. And it's, whether it's, and it goes into the lumberjack championship story, where people rolled in the grits, as there was a contest of how many pounds of grits you could get to stick to you. Or did you know they use helicopters when they, harvest cranberries?
But hey, look, Jen,
people are like, she's crazy. There's something wrong.
But on the other hand, you're the perfect guest because you're a storytime guest. It's like invite Jann Carl to your cocktail party and have at it. Just bring up a subject and let it go.
It's either that or who invited her.
And who invited her? Like
I actually was sitting next to a gentleman on a plane, and a lot of times I'm working or sleeping on a plane, and this time I talked. When I got off the plane, I thought to myself, I sounded like a crazy person. Literally everything he mentioned, I had a story.
Oh my God.
It was, if you're out there, God. I'm so sorry, sir. But I guess what you're seeing is passion that I have for the
definitely.
stories. I mean, and some of the heartwarming stories that we've done. The gentleman that sold a trucking company and then he wanted to farm and he grew produce and he found out that that food banks, what they don't ever get is fresh produce. So he now gives away everything he grows to the food banks. And that was a beautiful,
wow, that's great,
heartwarming story. I mean, we have done a lot of stories like that. And
the show leads itself to do that because you're traveling all over the states, all over the country. And, you know, a lot of it's good times and fun times and events and this and that. But also, you know, you have your moments. And one of the moments I have here is your salute to vets, which is really cool. And what you guys did in this program is really, I mean, how you found these things. I mean, my God, again, you know, it's small. Your staff is small. What, of 2, 3? What are we talking? Small.
We only have 3 full-time people, and then we have a great core group of producers and editors and writers.
Yeah. No, but really, really well done. And the salute that you guys did, and the gentleman that we'll see here a little bit of is he created his farmland into a replica of the wall there in D.C. Right. So let's check out the Small Town Big Deal Salute to Vets. Here we go.
Join us for 3 remarkable stories in this special presentation, A Salute to Veterans.
It's D-Day on Lake Erie.
No particular person.
Guests of honor include veterans who actually lived this history.
Well, I was only 17 years old. I knew there's dangers ahead, but I wasn't giving too much thought about it.
More than 1,500 reenactors make sure that the events of America's finest hour are kept alive. For one 91-year-old veteran, it brought him right back to 1944.
I looked around and I just almost got scared because it was almost like I was in the middle of the battle.
Thank you for your service.
The Tuskegee Airmen were members of the very first squadron of African-American pilots in the history of the U.S. Army Air Corps.
John Lee Spencer remembers what it was like to be fighting a war on 2 fronts.
We were outsiders, and we were trying to break the color barrier, get into the fight, and we wanted to prove ourselves that we were good enough to be one of them.
They more than proved themselves. The Tuskegee Airmen flew over the skies of Europe, protecting U.S. bombers with incredible results. In over 1,500 missions, the airmen shot down 112 enemy aircraft.
May the accomplishments of these brave heroes continue to inspire, and may their spirit always soar.
Jim Edelman was only 19 years old when he fought in the Tet Offensive during the Vietnam War. He served his country with honor.
I made a promise that if I made it back to the United States alive, I had to do something to honor and show my respect to my comrades.
Out of that promise, a remarkable memorial that includes an exact replica of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C.
I've heard more thank yous for your service right here than I did in the last 48 years.
Wow. To launch the project, Jim donated 47 acres of land in Missouri that had been in his family for 3 generations.
But that wasn't all. For 50 years, Jim saved part of his paychecks, sometimes only a few dollars at a time, working as a small-town butcher. Then Jim and his wife gifted their entire life savings, $2.5 million, in order to create this memorial.
A lot of people say, no, this is not the Vietnam Wall, it's the healing wall, or it's America's wall.
And to all of our veterans, from Jan and me and our small-town Big Deal family, thank you for your service.
That's awesome. I mean, so well produced and put together, and that's just like a teaser. I mean, you know, there's individual, you know, snippets of this show, and it goes on with these segments. Really well done. just how, and that's all. I mean, look, I'm sure that how the show looked before you came on board with your talent that you brought to the show helped a little. Come on, I would imagine, right?
I mean, Rodney's very kind when he will say that I helped the show, the production values, helped him get better, things like that.
He's awesome. Rodney is an awesome co-host with you, and there's a part there that he gets kind of choked up at the end.
It is probably the first time I've seen him really cry on camera. The idea, when you meet Jim and you realize, I mean, he was like we said, he was a small town butcher when he came back from Vietnam, and he had made this promise in this story, in the story he told us about his promise, and he drives a rusted out pickup truck. He lives in a very modest home. How do you, I mean, amass $2.5 million being Jim? Well, I think you save $2.550,000, and then he gives away, and his wife, she had to be in agreement. He gave away all of his life savings, and the thought of that, and standing there by their modest home and by the truck that was old and rusted, you realize that this isn't a multi-millionaire that gave 2.5. This is a man who gave away everything to create this. And for people who can't get to Washington, D.C., it's located in the middle of America. They're going to create a federal veterans cemetery there, and they have a veterans center where veterans come and have coffee. I mean, it was one of those stories that, again, it wasn't one of our goofy stories or one of our, oh my gosh, here in Maine we hollow out giant pumpkins and we race them. But it was still an uplifting story to see what one human can do, and how he felt so driven to follow up on his, he said, I made a promise to God that I would honor those that didn't make it back.
Wow.
If I did.
When was that produced? When did that happen?
I think we were at Jim's 2 years ago, if I'm right. I mean, sometimes I'm trying to remember now, and the whole COVID year has everything foggy. But I think we were at in Perryville, Missouri, I think 2 years ago with Jim.
Do you keep in touch with some of these people? I mean, how's he doing?
Yeah, he's doing well. Yes, we do, or their relatives. The gentleman that we interviewed at Lake Erie, who said we didn't give much thought about it, that was sitting in the chair, that he drove. In the full story, you learn that he drove Higgins boats. I think he came in 8 times, 10 times. I'm not exactly sure. That bullets are whizzing by, and those Higgins boats are wooden, and he survived. And so he recently passed away, and one of his, I think it's his granddaughter, that reached out to us and said, we are so grateful that you talked to our grandfather. We're so grateful to have that videotape. Well, when we got that email, we then took the entire interview and put it on a clip and sent it to the family and said, we want you to have the whole interview with him, because Andy Sipowicz, that's his name. And so, so we do try to keep in touch with some of them. We're probably going to be reaching out to a lot of the people that we've covered to say, do you want to support the show? Because it is hard to monetize a show like this.
Oh,
it's hard to compete against the Warner Brothers and the Paramounts and, the MGMs and the ABC, NBC, and CBSs of the world. So
but then again, Jen, I mean, you're keeping it fresh and lively with these different stories of these small towns, and sometimes you can equate it to Guy Fieri, like when he runs around with the cooking show, all these small little towns, but that's based on cooking, obviously, but it's sort of not the same, but that's based on cooking, but this is based on a story about an event or people that are in these small towns, and you guys do a great job at on giving them a showpiece
Yeah.
Because they would have never,
Yeah, to highlight them. I mean, sometimes we've not been in a small town. We did a story in Harlem, New York. And we said, because in New York, just a neighborhood or section of street is almost like its own small town,
Right.
It's like everybody kind of knows everybody. They kind of go to the same deli. You kind of go to the same, it's kind of like their own little small town. And we found out about an amazing program there, Harlem RBI, where they take children after school and they do baseball. And now they've grown into, I think it's called the Dream School, where they have now a separate school. The success rate of the kids in that program, and I'm the worst baseball, softball, anything. I can't throw, I can't hit. I was the last one picked in PE class. Oh man, I guess we have to get Jann, I was that one. And I remember we were going to play with them, and this little girl, I told her I was bad, and she looked at me, and she was tiny. She goes, "That's okay. You just try your best."
Oh, wow.
And I'm like,
she was telling you.
She was telling me, right? But that was the impact that they were having on these children. So yeah, we've done some stories in, I mean, you don't get much bigger than New York City. No. But if the story is right, we'll go there and tell it,
Exactly. Exactly. No, look, and the efforts that you put in, it shows the reality of it, and how you're very gracious, and my God, you're so good at what you do, Jann.
I feel lucky that I knew what I wanted to do by high school, and then I went boring. I went to college, and picked that career, and then I went and did it. I love people, and I like their stories, and I'm fascinated by them. And so I love to tell them, and I guess I've always had a deep respect for everyone's story, whether they're like me or not like me, whether we agree on things or disagree on things. And I love having the opportunity to tell them. I mean, who would have thought my first year here, we found a man he made things out of matchsticks. You glue matchsticks together. And he talked about how when he and his wife first got married, they had no money. They were just, they didn't make much where they worked, what they did. And he said, I saw in a magazine, you could, make a structure. And the first thing he did was he made a church. He glued matchsticks together. Fast forward, he now creates these unbelievable matchstick structures for Ripley's Believe It or Not museums.
Is that right? Wow.
You should see his Notre Dame, his U.S. Capitol, Hogwarts. I mean,
damn.
It's crazy. And then I remember I said, what did your wife think about your hobby? And you know what he said? He goes, she always knew where I was. And I'm like, he's in the basement with glue and matchsticks, of course. She knew he wasn't down at the local bar. Or, I mean, people are funny and people are adorable. And literally, he now, who would have thunk it kind of thing. So all those, like I said, I'm full of those stories. I could bore you to tears for hours with all of the stories that I have of the people we've met and the things they've done. But I think people are fascinating. And I think that, look, we made a decision to be a family-friendly show. We made a decision to be a positive and uplifting show.
And you said it was like your love letter or something to America.
I like to say that Small Town Big Deal is our love letter to America, because there's a lot to love. That's what I used to always say. We've had a really rough, couple of years or year and a half here in America. And I don't say that and don't recognize that we have to continue to improve, and we have to continue to get better as a country, as a people, as a nation. We do. We have to constantly, even as individuals, we need to look inward at, things we might need to change or fix about ourselves. I think we need to do that as a nation. But what I don't want us to do is in the process, is forget how great we are, because we're worth fighting for. We're worth changing for. We're worth being better because of all those things.
Absolutely. And not too many people are on board with that. I mean, look, the show is great, and you don't You don't have any politics that are injected in the show at all.
Zero.
And that's what makes the show so appealing to watch, because it's like, oh, it's a relief, you know.
Yeah.
Let me see the
yeah.
biggest meatball in you know, where
Aw.
was that? Where was the biggest
They
meatball?
broke the Guinness World Record on making the largest meatball.
The largest meatball with 2,000 pounds or something like that.
Oh my gosh, like over 1,700 pounds. And the chef, he's like getting, you know, got a big tough guy.
Yeah.
He's getting all weepy. And when I saw him getting all weepy, I'm getting verklempt, right? I'm just, it was adorable.
That's great.
And that again was, you know, pride. He brought pride to his city. He brought pride to his restaurant, to his grandmother's recipe, you know, the whole thing. And I would love for anybody who hasn't watched the show to like us on Facebook, and then they can figure out how to find the show and see what's coming up and support us in that way, because it's hard. It's hard. I don't know.
So now let's
how long we can keep going
let's do the
sometimes,
plug
because
here.
it's
Let's do the plug. It's airing on ABC. Is that right?
So no, so we're syndicated, which means we could be on wherever you are. It could be any station.
Right.
But if you go to smalltownbigdeal.com, there's a button that says where to watch. We also have episodes on our website. We have our YouTube channel.
That's great.
And the Facebook page will really is place that we do a lot of our communicating with everybody and what's going on, what's coming up, and other things like that. You know, here's what we've just recently said to ourselves too. We're kind of one of those shows that Hollywood would never produce. Nothing against Hollywood. It's just, we're not one of them. I mean, first of all, look at the age of the host. First, look at the age of the host, and then you would know that we were not a show that Hollywood would produce.
Right.
You look at it like it's a happy show. It's a family-friendly show. And when we say family-friendly, I don't want to, you know, deny anybody who wants to create a show that isn't family-friendly. I just want to make sure there's an alternative.
Exactly.
And there's not very many alternatives. So it's not that I'm against. I watch a lot of shows that are not family-friendly. You know, I get a big kick out of a lot of shows that are not family-friendly. But we wanted to provide that. So
but it's a relief, you know. Because everybody watches, you know, the R-rated, and you know, everybody wants to see a car crash or, you know, a fire, but then again, you know, people want a relief from that, and you know, they want to turn the channel into, you know, it's like, oh, you know, somebody like actually like doing something in a small town, and you two are so cute together that, you know, and you play off of one another so well. And then you make the show go, and it's really, really well produced. And what do you got coming up? I mean, what's like the next season? What do we have to look forward to here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to. Oh, so they're the only tea farm in America. Like, nobody grows tea in America. You get tea, like we drinking tea.
Right.
We actually found that there is a tea farm in America. So we go and we like, so why is it here? How to get here? You know, how do you harvest tea? It's got one machine. There's one machine in America that does it. It's there. I mean, that's kind of crazy. We're doing the circus, the circus museum, and all that in Baraboo, Wisconsin.
I want to watch that one. That's
kind of cool. We did there's a place in Kansas City, Missouri called Subtropolis. It is they call it the #1 underground facility in the world.
Great.
You could put, I think, 45 Arrowhead football stadiums into this. Everything from, and they store everything from National Archives, they said, to Gone with the Wind or The Wizard of Oz, or, you know, I mean, they didn't name names, but we.
Oh, where they protect all the films and stuff like that.
Yeah, all of that.
I've heard of places like that, but never knew
it's
exactly.
Literally, they have 8 miles of roads.
That's crazy.
It's crazy to be there and to comprehend
I know.
that. We're going to the hot dog festival. We just went to a place in Appalachia where a guy is like, we've had more rain here. What are we doing with all this rain? And we don't grow tobacco anymore. We don't really, you know, do much coal, you know, excavating anymore. He is now creating the largest greenhouses in America, and the largest. In the middle of COVID, he hired 500 people.
Oh, that's awesome.
500 people. And they are growing the most beautiful and delicious tomatoes I've ever seen, and just and they're moving. So it's like people are always thinking and doing and creating, and what he's doing for Appalachia, it's called App Harvest, and what he's doing for all those people that lost work and lost jobs.
And I think that's what I said before, is that, strap yourself on there, because you're going to be busy with a lot of people getting back to what they love to do. And, you're going to have to show these people off. And I think you're going to be, I mean, if you're not already, busy with a lot of pre-production and getting these shows produced, because
and we also produce a 1 hour Christmas special every year that
that's nice.
I love that. I love it. I love it.
Is that a traveling one too? Like, is that like one place?
Yeah, we've traveled with it. One of my favorite ones was these group of monks that make fruitcake. They make 30,000 a year.
Oh, wow.
Their business, so that they're not a drain on the church, so with their business. And they were so cute and so funny. They said, well, we used to make concrete blocks. And they said, so this isn't that much different. It's just
those monks are into wine, they're into beer, now they're into fruit.
Yeah, they are. And they're into fruitcake, and the wine. You're right. It was, so, I mean, there's a company that still makes candy canes by hand.
Really?
Beautiful, hand-pulled, handmade.
Oh, that's really cool.
Hammond Candy Company,
So is that like usually broadcasting the week, the Christmas week, like that?
So what we do is that gets syndicated separately. So it's syndicated all across America. It's a 1 hour special, and they can run it anytime between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Oh, okay.
And it's been, that's been a really great. And to see how some small towns, celebrate their traditions. We went to a Santa school. Wow.
Oh,
that was kind of like it was fun, but it was kind of like a Twilight Zone episode. And you walk into this room, and Rodney and I were at a business meeting somewhere else, and our crew got there a day before us, and they're at the local Hampton Inn, and they said they go down to the free breakfast, and they were like, and they took a picture because there's all these Santas that are at the free breakfast, at the Hampton Inn, getting ready to head over to the Santa school. And they said it was like this out-of-body experience. And anyway, so like I said, I could go on forever, and my passion level is high.
You're very, very passionate with the program, and you guys do an awesome job at it. And I'm so lucky to have you on Buzz Talk Live, Jann. What an incredible experience to have you as my guest. You really, you showed.
Thanks for letting me take over your show. I know.
I know. It's like, come on. This is.
It's like, I'd like to get one word now.
I
have the opportunity to tell about it, and I think what you're doing is fantastic. I love that you're talking to people about what they do in the industry, and whether they're behind the scenes or in front of, in front and center, because it takes everybody to put it together. And I find everyone's jobs are fascinating.
It does. Not a lot of people get recognized in our industry, whether it be live events or broadcast, and so to shed a little light and spotlight those people, I think it's an admirable thing to do, and having a person of yourself on the show, it really you could see the polish of a broadcaster like yourself, and how you took on. I mean, my God, Small Town Big Deal. That's your baby, and it's like it's a big undertaking, than to go into the studio and read the teleprompter, like we said in the beginning, and give the news or interview a famous person, but to actually executive produce a show and to wear that on your sleeves like you do is, you can't say anything about. I mean, that's great. And
it was.
You've come a long way, baby.
Yeah, I'm telling you. It's the show. I'm glad I have the filter that comes on Zoom. It's beginning the show. It's been like getting a master's degree.
Yeah.
In many ways. I mean, literally, I had to take one class in the business school to graduate. One. And I took it and I didn't take any more, even though, yes, Dad, I know. He said, you really should take more classes in the business school. I was like, no. One of the first meetings, because again, we're not just producing the show, we have to monetize it.
That's right.
And we have to find people who are going to sell our ad time, and we have to sell sponsorships
you know,
for the show and do all that. And we walked out of a meeting and I said to Rodney, I'm like, what's P&L? And he was like, Jen, that's profit and loss. And I was like, okay. Like a week later, we walk out of another meeting and I'm like, so what's ROI? He's like, that's return on investment. And I was like, okay. And I said, I didn't in the meeting, but I had to learn everything from the bottom up.
Well, and that's, you know, again, you know, it's not going into the studio and reading off a teleprompter. You know, you're owning this and you're involved in every step of the production, producing, getting it seen, funded, down the line, you know, syndicated, you know, everything. And your name is on the door, and it's, you know, if it crash and burns, you know, it's you and Rodney. I mean, but together, you know, you're making something really special for the viewers to view, and the family friendly, you know, programming and all it's so awesome. And thanks again for being
you wonder
part of the
sometimes
show.
why you're doing something. And we got an email once from a young woman in California.
Yeah.
And she said she had been contemplating suicide. And she said, and I watched your show, and she said, it made me happy and it gave me hope.
Wow.
And if that's the only reason that we have been on this really difficult, struggling, you know, struggle and all that, then it's all been worth it.
Yeah,
and,
right there. Absolutely. I mean, to get that feedback from somebody that you've touched along the way, and to get that response from them, that wasn't like scripted. I mean, that, you know, that's coming from the heart, and that must have touched you.
It all of us. It was, I mean, I wrote her a handwritten letter. We sent her T-shirts, hats, sweatshirts, mugs, you know, everything that we could possibly send her to think of small town big deal, and remember that, you know, there's tomorrow and there's hope and there's, you know, and so I mean, like I said, if all of this has been just for her, then it was been worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
More than worth it. And we hope that if, you know, I like to tell people, I said, you know, at the end of the show, I will guarantee you're smiling. And if someone's smiling, then it's because they feel good. If they feel good, they have hope. If they feel good, maybe they're nicer to their spouse or their coworker or their child or their neighbor. And maybe that can just spread from there. And I know that I sound like a giant Pollyanna. And I guess I am in a lot of ways, but I do think if you put some joy out in the world, you put something positive and something uplifting, then it can, I believe it can spread. Yeah, and I think we give people ideas. Yeah, especially now.
Especially now. Well, thanks again, Jann. It was so nice to have you on the show tonight. We've learned a lot about you and a lot about your new show, and I can't thank you enough.
Oh, well, I want to thank you for having me. It's been my pleasure, and I feel very honored to be on your show, and I'm very excited about what you're doing, and I'm going to be a regular tune-in person. And
me too. I'm going to tune into your show.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
And I thank you for the opportunity and for putting up with my like overzealous, you know.
Right, you're taking over the show.
Yeah, for taking over the show. Yeah, sorry about that.
You know, it is called Buzz Talk Live.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, I thank you so much, and I, you know, and I have to say too that I couldn't have done all of this without, and I'm sure you have the same feelings, without the love and support of, you know, my family. Absolutely. They didn't think I was crazy. You know, my mom, my brother, my two children in their 20s that they've supported me and this kind of crazy journey.
Then again,
with the show.
right? The position that you were in, even back when you were doing the telethons and all that with Jerry Lewis, I mean, building a family and have to do that and ET and, so a lot of it's been taken away from, raising children and home and, a lot of things that people don't really understand about a person in your, predicament, so.
Yeah. It's kind of everything went away except working kids.
Right.
And so yeah, a big shout out to, my mom who always made me feel like I could do anything and become anything I wanted to.
Yeah.
And, so that's been very important. And the support, of her and my brother and my family who said, I don't think I'm crazy. They support what I do all these years and continue to.
Well, I mean, look, your family always has like certain keywords, to that kind of triggers you, like, but yeah, I mean, look, you encountered something that you love to do, and you love to talk to people. You love to put things together to show off their lives, and what you're doing with this new show is is really admirable, and you're very modest, and it's very, very well done. So
thank you. And I have to thank Rodney Miller for letting me on the journey.
And Rodney, Rodney's great.
Yeah,
love that.
Thanks for yeah. Next time we'll have you talk to him.
Yeah.
He won't try to take over your show.
We can talk about farming.
Or how much Jann talks. Yeah, no. Yeah.
Thanks again, Jann.
Oh, thank you, George, so much. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, thanks. Oh my God. So Jann was great tonight. She's wonderful, polished superstar in everything she's done, from ET, from being a newscaster now to Small Town Big Deal, and please tune into the show. It's what a great show. I had a lot of fun putting it all together, and to show off her and spotlight her on the show. It's what a great interview. Tune in again next Sunday, not next Sunday, August 1st, with singer-songwriter. She's an actress. Kat London is going to be here. She's also a comic, musical improv person. She's very funny, and she's very talented. She's from New Jersey. So tune in again on August 1st for that show at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. That's all for tonight, folks. Thanks again for tuning in, and thanks again for Jann Carl to join me here on Buzz Talk Live. That's it, and good night, America.